We would like to thank our community event sponsors, Bristol Myers Squibb, Amgen Oncology, Cario Farm Therapeutics, AbbVie, Adaptive Biotechnologies, Genentech, Oncopeptides, and Takeda Oncology. Now it's my pleasure to introduce our key speakers to you. We'll start with the Kennedys. Todd and Diane Kennedy are the co-leaders of the SoCal Myeloma Community chapter. This photo is from a couple weeks ago when they were in Bryce Canyon on vacation. Todd was diagnosed with multiple myeloma in December of 2017, and since that time, he and Diane have become active patient advocates in the myeloma community and are helping City of Hope with their expansion to Orange County. In addition to serving as co-leaders of the SoCal Myeloma Community chapter, they are also myeloma coaches. We also have Jenny Ahlstrom with us today. Jenny Ahlstrom is an 11-plus year myeloma survivor, patient advocate, wife, and mom of 6. She is a believer that patients can help accelerate a cure by weighing in and participating in clinical trials. She is the founder of HealthTree Foundation, Myeloma Crowd by HealthTree, and Myeloma Crowd Radio. Todd and Diane, I'm going to turn it over to you to introduce Jenny a little bit more, and then I believe you'll turn the time over to Jenny. So Todd and Diane, it's now yours.
Great. Thank you so much, and welcome everybody. We're so pleased to be together tonight as a Southern California myeloma community. So here's our agenda. We're going to start with 2 quick polling questions to get a better feel for who is joining tonight. And thanks also for putting some of that information into the chat during our warm-up time there. Then we're going to take a brief minute to touch on the Cure in 5 initiative. And then we'll transition into that special conversation with Jenny. And so appreciative, Jenny, that you've joined, and glad to see you there as well, Paul. Jenny's going to share her personal story as an 11-year myeloma survivor and why she founded Myeloma Crowd and the HealthTree Foundation, and give us some of her insights on the Cure in 5 initiative. And we're going to keep this really interactive. So we've got about 30 people on the call, and this is a really good chance to meet Jenny and Paul, and for all of us to get to know each other. Then we're going to have an open forum and close with a virtual mingle. So why don't we get rolling with some polling?
Hey, Ryman.
Yeah.
All right. So Audrey, explain how you can activate the polls over in the top right corner. If you click on the icon that had the circle and square and triangle, you should see 2 polls. And again, unfortunately, if you are on an iPhone or an iPad, I don't think you can access the polls at this time. So I'm just we have like 8 people that have voted so far, and so far 1 to 4 years is we have 4 votes in that area. And then the status of your disease, there's a variety of options for people to pick from: MGUS or smoldering, newly diagnosed, in remission on treatment, in remission not on treatment, relapsed refractory, and relapsed refractory not on treatment. So we'll kind of give everyone a minute or 2. That just helps us and helps Jenny then know who she's speaking with here this evening.
Relapse or refractory, or relapse or refractory?
We have a few more
Diane.
minutes here. Yes.
This is Darlene.
Hi, Darlene.
On my iPad, a little thing popped up and said that I could start polling.
Oh, awesome.
So I clicked on it and I was able to vote.
Awesome. They fixed it. It's been a complaint. So follow the thing that pops up.
Yeah.
Google and Apple are working together, apparently.
Yeah, what do you know? They'll be back fighting tomorrow, but for tonight, we can all get along. That's good.
There you go.
Hello, Darlene. Good to see you.
Hi, Paul. Nice to see you. It's been a while.
Yeah, it's been a while. Hey, who let Las Vegas in?
Yeah. I guess I'm the only one.
We're happy.
It's okay. We're in Utah, so I'm posing also.
Well, we're both from California, so.
Yeah, that.
Yeah. Well, we know so many of the Las Vegas people get treatment here, so we're thrilled to have you. All right, so we have 7 votes for those of you that can't see. 7 votes in the 1 to 4 years, and 4 people with less than 1, 2 people in the 5 to 10, and 2 votes in the 10 plus. Woohoo! And then when we go down to the status, we have 2 votes in the, I'm guessing smoldering, 3 in the newly diagnosed, and great for you guys to be here. 9 in the in remission on treatment, no one in remission not on treatment. We have 1 relapse refractory on treatment and 1 relapse refractory not on treatment. So that kind of gives us a update of where we at.
Well, that sounds pretty nice too. Then we've got, we cover the spectrum as far as timing and status. And when we set this thing up, I think we made the, set the expectation that there will be something for everyone, no matter where you are in your myeloma journey. So it really is great to see that we've got that representation across the board. So let's go ahead and move forward. So I'm just going to touch on this for a brief minute, and then we're going to jump right into the conversation with Jenny. But this, I think, sets the table beautifully. And we've been talking about this in the last couple meetings, but one of the most significant benefits of a connected myeloma community is that together we can really accelerate the arrival of curative strategies for myeloma. And that's what the Cure in 5 initiative is really all about. And in the first 2 meetings, like Audrey said, and if you were joined us, then you'll know that we were very focused on step 1, building and growing our community. And as I reviewed, there's about 10,000 myeloma patients in Southern California, including about 1,400 newly diagnosed each year, which still just blows my mind. And we just thank you for joining and participating and encouraging others to get connected as well. We're going to talk about steps 2 and 3 and why it's important to become educated, empowered, and share your story. We'll also talk about steps 4 and 5. So again, we're so pleased to have Jenny as well as Paul and all of you joining tonight. And Jenny is somebody that is just truly inspiring, and she's just such a powerful leader and a voice in the myeloma community. We're also really grateful to call her a friend and a mentor. And when I was first diagnosed, some of my early myeloma mentors referred us to Myeloma Crowd for just the incredible content. And Diana and I watched HealthTree University videos. We read the articles. We listened to Myeloma Crowd radio events. But during those first 2 years, we really weren't entirely comfortable investing a full day to attend a live roundtable event. But early last year in March, we thought, okay, let's get out of our comfort zone, take a risk. And it was a risk because that was actually when COVID was really kicking in. But we decided we'll do it. We'll go to the live Myeloma Crowd Roundtable event in San Diego. And really it was incredible. And we're so glad we went. We learned a lot, made connections with other patients, and I think started building a bond with Jenny and Paul and the whole HealthTree Foundation team. And I think that's one of the lessons that we've learned during our journey is just that value of getting out of your comfort zone and connecting with others in the community. And I think many of you have shared that kind of one of the unexpected silver linings of myeloma is the people that you meet along the way. And Jenny and her family and the family at HealthTree are really a blessing to Diane and I think to the myeloma community. And as we get into this conversation, chat your questions, and we prepared some questions, but our goal is really to keep it interactive. So Jenny, once again, welcome. Thanks for joining us tonight. And hopefully you'll make some new myeloma friends tonight here in Southern California. And I think one of the reasons that you're so successful and impactful as president of HealthTree Foundation is because you are a patient yourself. And perhaps we can just start it off by having you share a bit about your background and your myeloma journey.
Sure, and I see some familiar faces, so I'm happy to see you all that I know. Getting together in person is just so different, and I hope we can do that again at some point, because that roundtable in San Diego was really awesome. But thank you to you all. I see some coaches, and just thanks, everybody. I was diagnosed in 2010. I was 43 at the time of my diagnosis. When I was diagnosed, our family was actually living in Mexico. We had been invited to go help create the venture capital industry in Mexico. My husband, Paul, had created several funds in Utah. And so we moved the whole family down there. We have 6 kids. So they were, I think, ages just turned 3, or he was our youngest, to 15 was our oldest, or 14 was our oldest. So we moved everybody down and got them all acclimated. And I was really tired all the time, but I just kind of thought, well, who isn't tired? Like, you know, adapting to a new culture and everything like that. I didn't get tested until we came back after a year being there from vacation. And I just thought, you know, I've had fatigue and I just feel terrible and I had blood in my urine. So I thought, well, I'll go get checked on vacation. So I went up to, we were in Montana. They did a PET scan of my hip area. And then I got a call back. They said, well, your kidneys are okay, but your spine and your pelvis are full of holes. It's probably cancer. You have to go get checked. We were supposed to move back to Mexico in a 2-week time period. So we had 2 weeks to figure out what to do with 6 kids. And like, were we going to just cut it off and move back to Utah, or what were we going to do? And because I was going to be so immunocompromised, we decided to have the family go back to Mexico. I had a full-time caregiver in Utah and had some family members in Utah too. So it all worked out for everybody. And it would have been really hard to tell the 3-year-old, you know, you can't come hug me, or, you know, that would have been kind of a little too hard. So it all worked out. I went to a general oncologist, like most everybody, and without doing the regular testing, he said, I think you have myeloma. He had not done a bone marrow biopsy. I'm going to start you on treatment on Friday. Don't worry, you won't lose your hair. If that doesn't work, we'll do a stem cell transplant later. And before that, my brother-in-law had died of AML 6 years prior. And we really didn't do anything right for his AML diagnosis. We didn't advocate, we didn't do research, we didn't do a lot of things right. So when I got diagnosed, it was almost like not as big of a shock. We decided that we would do things much differently. So we decided we will advocate, we will educate ourselves, we will do that. And it was the easiest thing to do via helping other people. So the first program, we had this idea for the HealthTree website, or the HealthTree Cure Hub, which is now what we call it, after David's diagnosis and after he passed away. AML is a really terrible disease, and he only lasted a year. And we had that idea to create that, but we realized there were some immediately pressing issues. I appreciate what the other foundations do, but I saw a lot of gaps as a patient myself in what didn't exist that I wanted. And the first thing was that I wanted to understand clinical trials. So I got on clinicaltrials.gov, saw 450 open trials, started, you know, like read about 2 of them, kind of wanted to cry, and then kind of gave up, you know, and I'm like, what are these trials all about? And how do patients even figure them out? So I started a radio program interviewing myeloma experts just to ask them, tell me about your trial. What are you trying to accomplish? Who can join? Why is the science interesting? And that became the start of the Myeloma Crowd. Then we built the news website. Then we started building live meetings like the roundtables. And then every patient program that we've created has been just out of need. For example, when we released the HealthTree Cure Hub, we ended up going to 50 cities, and Orange County was one of the cities that we came to. So some of you might have been there. But we interviewed probably 860 myeloma patients in 2018 in 50 different cities. We realized how many people don't attend support group meetings like this, and wanted to create different ways of helping patients. So that's why we instituted the Myeloma Coach program. What? They can't see you.
Oh, hi. But one of my observations has been that Jenny was just trying to get educated herself. She would go do something like interview a doctor, record the interaction, and then just share with other patients. And it was kind of very organic, where she just would do this over and over again. And then she captured the information and she would just share it. And that radio show program ended up over the year generating, for the first few years, generated over 1 million views or watches, which is, you know, every patient over the few years has seen it at least once. And so that was shocking to us, that there was that much interest in connecting with the doctors or talking to the doctors or getting that face-to-face or voice-to-voice interaction.
And one thing that we focus on our programs is that connection between patients and myeloma experts. because it's really important for us as patients to hear directly from them. So the information is not necessarily hyper filtered. We can just, the field is moving so fast in myeloma that you need constant updates from the experts. And so now I just, it's been amazing. It took me a long time to get up to speed on myeloma. I didn't want everybody else to have to reinvent that wheel. So as we built our programs or provided resources, we just want it to be super fast. So you get diagnosed with multiple myeloma, you can binge watch your way through HealthTree University, or you can find a coach immediately and who can help you on that path and get that one-on-one help that you need.
Jenny, you made a really cool graph the other day. So the 60 years prior to Jenny getting diagnosed, there were 6 myeloma treatments that had been invented since the beginning of treating of myeloma. Since 2010, how many new treatments have there been approved since 2010, in the last 10 or 11 years?
I can't remember the number. I think it was around 11.
Yeah,
or
so
something like
7
that.
over 50 years and 11 in the last 10 years.
It's incredible. Jenny, I love the fact that you said that there was a need to get up to, for information to get up to speed. And I think you emphasize, and again, we have people that are getting up to speed, and then we have people based on our polling that are well into their journey. And I think what I came to appreciate was, yes, you're drinking out of a fire hose to understand the fundamentals and the basics in the beginning. But because, as Paul just said, there's new treatment options and the science is emerging so rapidly, there's a need to stay up to speed.
Yeah, totally. And because we have a mix of relapsed and newly diagnosed patients, myeloma, you feel like you're never done with myeloma. So you have to keep going back and you have to keep considering different treatment options. So it really behooves you to stay a little bit ahead of it, look at treatment options before that happens, and kind of make this mental plan. I didn't like what happened with David, and I did not want to be in that same position. So we wanted to connect with the myeloma researchers, and Luz was asking in the chat, like, how we invited the doctors. So I started with my doctor, who was at MD Anderson, and asked if he would like to do that. He was very gracious. I was very nervous about doing it because it was the first time I had ever done it. And he said, shockingly, that radio program helped me find more new patients than any other program he had ever done before. And that was our very first program. So then I started reaching out to myeloma experts and just saying, would you like to do this program with me? We're sharing it with lots of patients. So it wasn't just I was calling them to ask them about their research, but I was willing to share it with other patients. And they were very happy to participate because, number one, they want patients in their clinical trials. And number two, I think they're working so hard on research and treating patients, they don't have time to talk about the good they're doing in the world. So it was really a win-win for everybody. Patients loved it. I enjoyed it. I was getting educated. They loved it. It was good for everybody.
How do you see it helping in the research area, the Myeloma Crowd? And also, I mean, it's obvious to me as a caregiver, and I know many people as patients, the benefit, but HealthTree and Myeloma Crowd, how do you see it helping advance the research?
You have to have a community of patients who are headed the same direction in order to accelerate research. So, one of the doctors at Huntsman made a very kind of rude comment to Paul when we said we were going to start a foundation. He said it's because of people like you, we haven't found a cure for cancer yet. And I asked him, his name was Steve Prescott. He was the head of Huntsman Cancer Institute. And I asked him about that. And I said, why would you say that? I mean, that's an interesting, bold statement. He said, every time a rich guy's family gets cancer, he starts another foundation and splinters off all the resources and doesn't give us the money for research. And so we thought long and hard. So first of all, thanks for thinking I'm rich. and then we thought long and hard about what we would do so we don't replicate
and duplicate what people are doing. We build upon it and support people who are doing good things. But we saw these holes that existed, and one of the biggest holes that existed was the data. Patients are not sharing their stories with each other. They're not doing it. They're not sharing the data with each other. There's holes in it, that treatments and the outcomes of the patients. Nobody in the world is capturing patient-reported outcomes. Zero. Nobody, not a hospital, anybody was capturing anything. So when you say, doctor, that hurts, that goes into a black hole, and it's never found again. And it's not even recorded in the system. So there's certain things that we thought were really important that just need to be captured. And a patient was one of the best. Patients are the only people that can actually put these puzzle pieces together.
Yeah, but that's what we realized, because HIPAA has so many restrictions on the facility side, and the research facilities don't share their data between facilities unless they participate in a small joint clinical trial. So who's going to do it? It's not the tech companies. We actually went through a process where we thought, okay, well, someone else can do this. So we reached out to Microsoft Health Vault to actually try to purchase them, Google Health, and IBM, the Watson team, to see if a tech company could do this. And they said, well, give us the data and we'll do the analytics on it.
Jenny's an old IBMer, and they offered to do it for free if we could get access to the data. So it shocked us that IBM, with their billions of dollars they've invested into Watson Health, couldn't get access to the patient data. That was absolutely shocking to us. And it turns out that their IBM Health initiative under Watson failed because of that, because they got cut off from the data from Epic and Cerner, those systems. And so this was more serious than we ever thought. There is this huge void in capturing this data, to connecting the dots, to helping figure out what's working, what's not working.
So we just came at it from just a very practical idea. Like, what if we all shared our myeloma stories, and then we could see patterns in treatment? I'll give you some example. We haven't published on this data yet, but
Ooh, this is good.
We're doing a genomic study if you'd like to participate. So if you have any genetic features on your FISH test, you can sign into the HealthTree Care Hub and participate in the study. But something super like low-hanging fruit, in my opinion. You know how precision medicine is kind of all the rage right now. And let's try to find specific drugs for specific targets. But what about just practical everyday life and what's happening in the real world? So we took a look at all patients with all genetic features so far. And we have about 500 patients who have signed up for that study so far. And we looked at the induction therapy that they had received. And then we mapped the induction therapy by genetic feature. And for example, some of the patients, about 20% of the patients, were getting Cyborg-D as induction therapy. And the standard is kind of RVD, Revlimid, Velcade, Dex.
So what percentage were getting Cyborg?
About 20%. And then the other percentage were getting Kyprolis, Revdex, right? That's very common treatment induction. But the patients who were getting Cyborg-D had about 1.5 years less time to next treatment. So if you think about that, and then you looked at it by genetic feature, and 11-14 patients were the absolute worst.
So they're falling out of remission faster.
Yeah. So you have 1.5 years less remission if you use that as your induction therapy. Well, why are patients getting Cyborg-D as induction therapy? Maybe it's cost. Maybe it's they're going to a general oncologist and their general oncologist has no idea what they're doing. Or maybe, like it could be a lot of reasons, but isn't that low-hanging fruit to say, oh my gosh, I could get another 1.5 years of remission if I just pick a different treatment from the get-go? So that type of study or research is not going to be funded by any pharma company. A researcher would have to go probably spend 1.5 to 2 years trying to raise money to be able to get that research. And then, Cyborg-D might be used for people with kidney problems. So yeah, Revlimid is a little hard on the kidneys. So that might be partially why. And it's cheaper. It's cheaper too. So, but if you don't have that problem, you probably should get RVD or KRD because the outcome data. But I haven't seen a lot of study on that, and I've been studying myeloma for over 9 years now. and some of those practical types of things. So that's where HealthTree can contribute to research, is we can do these types of studies. Like for example, how is COVID affecting myeloma patients? We have a study running in HealthTree Cure Hub. We had 1,300 patients do that study the first go around back in April and May. And we wanted to know if patients' treatments were being changed because of COVID. Turns out at the time they weren't really being changed. And then we did a part 2 study. We have about almost 1,000 patients participating in that study. But this is information that, like Mike Thompson wanted to know if patients were getting vaccinated after stem cell transplant. And he said that study would have taken me 2 years and $250,000. We provided support. We just asked him, what questions do you want to ask us as patients? And he gave us the questions. There were only 5 questions. And we posted it. We got 600 responses in less than 2 months, and we give it to him for free. Because our goal as a patient group is speed, right? I have talked about this before. I feel like I'm personally playing beat the clock, like, can we get to a cure before I relapse again or whatnot? And I think we all feel that pressure. So if we can contribute, patients are always willing to contribute an extra blood sample, or if I'm already under and you're doing a bone marrow biopsy, just take another pull. I don't care. That helps you with research. Sure, I'll be happy to do that. But what about our stories? What worked best and that's kind of what we're working on now in the genomics study. What worked best for our deletion 17 patients or 11-14 patients? Wouldn't you want to know that just based on longitudinal experience? Because someone can go in, and that's what I wanted when I was diagnosed. I had the 1420 translocation when I was diagnosed. And I asked my doctor, show me some data before I start treatment about which protocol worked the best. They couldn't really do it. They didn't have the data. So we're making these life and death decisions in a vacuum. And that to me just was not okay. So
that's a great example of how this foundation is filling a gap, because that type of real world evidence doesn't exist from other sources. And you're answering questions that wouldn't have been able to be answered. Nobody would have actually done it and invested the time and energy, and you're getting the answers quickly too. So I think Cure Hub is really unbelievable. And like you said, it does fill a gap that needed to be filled. How many people are in Cure Hub now? Do you have the estimate?
It's over 8,700.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. No, I looked about a month ago. It was about 8,700.
That's unbelievable. And we have about 378 that I believe are in the Southern California area. And as we continue to have conversations within this chapter, we'll continue to talk about the benefits of Cure Hub, because it helps you individually, but it also helps the research and helps us all collectively as a community.
That was part of our design. Because we saw programs like Google Health or Microsoft Health Vault, it always bothered me as a patient to have a company say, or organizations say, well, give me your data, and I'm kind of like, well, what are you going to do with it? And, maybe you're going to find insights that are beneficial for me 15 years down the road. And maybe I'm generous and I'm going to do that because I have participated in clinical trials and things like that for research before. But what about helping me manage my disease today? And so when we built HealthTree Cure Hub, we built in features so you can see treatment options that are personalized. You can find clinical trials that you are personally eligible to join. You can find your genetic twin. You can see patient-reported outcomes and side effects and solutions for those side effects. So, we need help managing our day-to-day disease. And that's one of the reasons that we did that. And there are benefits you can gain by being a single user in HealthTree Cure Hub, and there are collective benefits that you can gain by being a group or a community in HealthTree Cure Hub.
It's awesome. I was looking to see, I think there was a raised hand there, Audrey. I can't see all of my tiles there, but we want to make sure it stays interactive. And
Russ has a question. Russ.
Do we need to unmute Russ? Or?
Nope, no question. Okay, sorry.
Okay.
Okay. If anyone does have questions, you can raise your hands or ask over in the chat. And we're following that way also.
So let me ask a quick question because we want to keep this interactive, and you don't have to ask the question. But if you're in Cure Hub, you don't need to put it in the chat. Just wave at us on your screen or something like that. Audrey, you're in. I'm in.
Yeah, Tom has a question.
Sally's in. That's great.
Yeah.
Tom,
Todd,
what's your question?
Yeah. You're muted, Tom.
Maybe Cassandra or
And
can
Tom,
unmute him. And
if you can unmute.
Yeah, we can't unmute them, but it's at the bottom of your screen. It should be like a white bar at the bottom of your screen. And
Oh, I got it
there-
now. I just don't use the Google thing.
I know.
Hi, Tom.
Hi, Jenny. It's nice
Hi,
to
Tom.
see you.
Good to see you too.
Haven't seen you for a while. I was gonna ask if you wanted to talk a little bit about the impact of the pandemic on the accessibility to myeloma specialists. It seems to me, in my new role at Eisenhower since Rob passed away, that it's much easier for us to convince a patient and to facilitate a conversation with a myeloma specialist than it was when people had to think about physically going to the and I mean, I look for these bright spots out of the pandemic kind of thing, and that seems to be one. Do you think that's do you think that's that's pervasive?
I think the telehealth rules that opened up during COVID were something that should have always existed and something that should still exist. Because in my opinion, if you have all your records pulled together and you can get another second opinion quickly, and when you're making a treatment decision, either when you're newly diagnosed or you are a relapsed patient looking for another treatment option, it's going to serve you really well. And the rules relaxed, and then they started in the fall of last year, they started kind of clamping down again because there are rules that you can't practice medicine across state lines and all sorts of weird things. But it doesn't make sense because we're going to get on a plane and go to that doctor, maybe at the Mayo Clinic or at Huntsman or a City of Hope or wherever we're going for the second opinion. And we're going to go out of state boundaries probably anyway. So it was very helpful for patients, in my opinion, especially people who are, like most patients are older. So you don't really want them getting on a plane with COVID to go get a second opinion. So what a blessing that was. And I would like to advocate for continued telehealth because to me, there are certain things you have to do in person. Maybe your first appointment with somebody is, nicer in person, but telehealth is a really great venue.
We've had a lot of success setting up consults within California with regional places, and we've got a fair amount of myeloma specialists here, and whatever. And it's been so much easier to facilitate those things.
I did several telehealth visits because I'm trying to figure out what I'm going to do next. And with one of the Mayo Clinic doctors, I used HealthTree to do my telehealth visit, and it was awesome.
Yeah.
And we actually, in HealthTree, we actually built a telehealth portal. So I was kind of testing it out with this doctor. So he could see all my records on the back end, and it was great. He was like, that was so easy. And my staff didn't have to, pull all your records and get them in and get them updated and look through them. He said it was awesome. So
I did one of those yesterday with a patient at Eisenhower with a UCSD doctor. And she was pointing out that the cohesiveness of the record was far better than what we could have
Yeah.
had, even if we used the system that they're both on. So just
That's great to hear.
yeah.
Yeah, that's great. You know, Jenny, thinking about that question, it kind of takes you into the idea of telehealth or live second opinions and the importance of second opinions, when you should have second opinions or even third opinions or fourth opinions. You know, do you have some thoughts on that? We're focused on that step 2 and 3 in an educated and empowered patient, and getting those second opinions and not being afraid to, or not burning bridges. I know people are concerned about that. Can you comment on the importance of second or third opinions?
So if you're going to a general oncologist, you definitely need a second opinion from a myeloma specialist. So that getting a myeloma specialist on your team is the number one thing you can do for your care. If you don't have that, you should have that. And even you don't have to get care at the specialty center if it's too much traffic or too far away or whatnot, but you do need to do a consult, especially when you're newly diagnosed or when you're making another treatment decision. I think sometimes patients feel like, well, my oncologist is really nice and I don't want to offend them, but if your doctor has a problem with it, it's time to get a new doctor, to get a second opinion, because, and I hear doctors, all the myeloma specialists will say that, because that's, you know, we had a meeting with Dana Farber last Saturday, and they said that too. The doctor should not be intimidated or offended by you getting a second opinion. I recently, you know, because I know a lot of the myeloma specialists, so I had 2 very formal second opinions for my care. And I've really been studying what to do for a long time, but I ended up talking to probably 5 different myeloma specialists. Some were offhand, like, okay, this is happening. What do you think? And some were very formal appointments. And in talking to 5 different myeloma experts, I got 5 different opinions. So, you know, what's a patient supposed to do with 5 different opinions? And then, you know, some of it was like, well, you could repeat your transplant. Well, you could do this triple combination. Well, you could, you know, join this clinical trial. And so as myeloma patients, there are a lot of options for us, especially at the beginning when you haven't, you know, experienced them before. So some of it was just my personal strategy. Like when I was diagnosed, my personal strategy was, let's cure this thing. So I did tandem transplants. It was the harshest thing you could essentially do at the time. And now it's different, but that's what I did. And I'm still looking for that approach, even at relapse. And so that has kind of helped me decide on what I'm going to do next.
I think it's so incredible that you have then been able to get those opinions, even though they differ. There's probably a common thread. You know, you start hearing a theme, you know, but it is so helpful. But I think the only way you can go get that expert input is knowing that that's appropriate and you have access to doing it, and then having as much education as you possibly can to be able to process what they're saying and prepare adequately. And then I think the other part of that I think is so important is that they're talking to you about what's the matter with you, but they don't necessarily know what's important to you, what matters to you. So that's why it's that personal. Sometimes they don't say do this because they don't know exactly what is that right combination of approaches, you know, that matters to you.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's a strategy thing, right? So you're hearing different perspectives on strategies that from global experts, and some of them have different perspectives because of what they study. So some are more immunotherapists, and some are more transplant people, and some are more combination therapy or targeted inhibitors. So it kind of depends on their area of research as well. And it's very nice to get this, you know, more well-rounded set of perspectives.
That's why
I'm not suggesting that everyone get 5 different opinions, but and some of those were not formal. But you know, I did get 2 very formal second opinions.
And you don't necessarily, you can get different perspectives just by regularly participating in the many educational events that are happening. So you
Right.
can hear what Dr. Richardson's thinking last weekend from his presentation around Dana-Farber, or what Dr. Orlowski's thinking and things.
Mhm.
It's what you're doing there on the educational front is so, so valuable.
Well, there's a lot of content there, and there's a lot of we are really blessed in myeloma. And the Wall Street Journal really said even 5 years ago that there's more development being done in the myeloma space than any other cancer. So, I mean, it's not a fun disease to have, but it is very hopeful that we have a lot going on.
I think if you looked in CureHub and you have 8,000 people in there, you could probably find people that by definition would be considered functionally cured.
Yeah, I've heard some of the myeloma doctors say that 10 to 15% of myeloma patients are functionally cured, but they don't know who, how, or why, which is part of the reason we built the Cure Hub. So who are they? Why do they get good outcomes? Could it be myeloma genetics combined with lifestyle habits? Could it be, we don't know. And so that's what we're looking at. We started also some research into like long-term outcome survivors. Why have they been successful? And that's one of the things we're studying in HealthTree also.
That's great. I love when we join these educational events, the sense of optimism that with the recent advances, the first commercially approved CAR T, the excitement in bites and antibody drug conjugates and everything else, it's such an exciting time. And I do believe, I love you, I use it all the time, your analogy around beating the clock and trying to stay as educated, empowered, and staying ahead of that research curve as much as possible. So
your advocacy matters for your outcomes. And it's hard to, I saw it, how it didn't work, what we did with David's experience. And unfortunately, we were just so naive at the time. I think had I been diagnosed first, we would have done the same thing, gone to a general oncologist, kind of followed what they had to say. I would be relapsed 2 or 3 times by now, and it would just be bad. So it does matter. It makes a huge difference in your outcome to see a myeloma specialist and to self-advocate.
Great. We have another question. Yeah. So Clifford says, I just had a stem cell transplant 6 weeks ago. So congratulations. Those are tough. Thanks for being here. And the question is when to get the COVID vaccination, or what have multiple myeloma specialists advised about time?
Well, not a doctor, but I've heard them say 3 months post-transplant. You would have to check with your doctor individually about when you should get the COVID vaccine. I think they're starting to do studies now on COVID responses. They're finding patients in and out of treatment. The response rates are in the 55-60% range to getting the vaccine and having it be effective. And Dr. Richardson said over the weekend what they're saying is it's more of the activity level of your myeloma, not necessarily if you're on treatment or off treatment. That didn't seem to matter. So that's kind of encouraging that it was, but it was just kind of the activity level of your myeloma. We did write an article about that probably a week and a half ago. Anytime I find information like that, we'll share it on the site.
Yeah, I can include that in the follow-up email as well, the article. You'll receive a follow-up email after this event. 24 to 48 hours after this event, we'll have the recording, we'll have the slides we shared, and we can include different resources, including the article that Jenny is mentioning.
Steve has a question regarding antibody tests and where did you go to get them, and was it ordered by your PCP or oncologist?
I had an antibody test post-vaccine, but
yeah, I think he's talking about there's been a discussion in the chat, and so I think he's just asking those who have responded.
I see.
If you guys want to head over to the chat and talk about the antibody tests. Amira has a question for you, Jenny. What's the best way to navigate getting different opinions without impacting the relationship with your main specialist? I hear this question a lot, and you kind of hit on it a little bit, but
You don't have to tell them you're getting a second opinion.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, really, you know, if you don't want to, you don't have to. I can go request a second opinion from another doctor. I told my doctor at Huntsman, he knows how active I am in self-advocating and as a patient advocate, and then I know a lot of the myeloma doctors. And so he wasn't, you know, I don't know. He said, you know, your problem might be just too many choices, but he was okay with it. And I had to kind of mentally go through all the different options for myself before I decided on what I was going to do. Weigh the pros and cons, and it takes a lot. So
Yeah.
you can go request a second opinion, and then you can come back and say, what do you think about this combination instead of the one you're proposing to me? Why would you do that? And you don't even have to tell them if you don't want to. You can just say, you know, I've heard experts talk about X.
Yeah.
I think it's fine to share second opinions, but
Yeah. I've heard a lot, just, you know, we've talked about it earlier today, but I don't want to offend my doctor. And I don't know if I should say this, but if they're offended, it's not your problem. Your duty to yourself is to self-advocate, as Jenny has been mentioning. So
yeah, it's your life. So
yeah.
do what you can.
Tom, do you have something you want to say?
Well, I was just going to say that one of the things that I've done at Eisenhower with the oncologists here is I have done groups with them outside of the world and asked them why. Why is it that some oncologists have this? And their answer is, and they've become much better since they were talking about it, quite frankly. Their answer was, well, who's going to get the credit? Who gets the
Everyone can get an A+.
And
Yeah, that's
you know,
silly.
and we've tried to, you know, I've done stupid things. You know, everybody knows I'm a tennis coach. I've taken them to the tennis court and said, take out your competitive juices here. Not, not with patients. Find another way to do all of those things. But it's an interesting, I never got to ask that question when Rob was in treatment and whatever. And it was very interesting to ask the question and to get that kind of a quote unquote honest answer, if you will.
Well, we thought when we first created the HealthTree Cure Hub software that it would be most appropriate for general oncologists to learn how to treat like a myeloma expert and get the same outcomes, because the Mayo Clinic did a study where they showed that you live 2 or more years, and the range was between like 2 and 5 years longer if you see a myeloma specialist. So clearly, myeloma is a nuanced disease to treat. And clearly there are strategies that can get you better outcomes. So when we did that tour, I would say 1/3 of the patients, in my opinion, after hearing lots of doctors, have been undertreated. Like in Southern California, we had lunch with a wonderful woman, and she had been treated just with dexamethasone for multiple years, only dex, as her induction therapy. Like, that is dumb. Don't do that, you know, and a myeloma specialist would never do that. So, you know,
I think one of the other problems, though, that crops up with general oncologists is that when they do overcome the resistance to taking the advice from multiple myeloma specialists, they don't keep up with it. And that's
well,
a
can
bit
you
of a
imagine?
problem
I mean,
as
can you
well.
imagine how
That's
hard that is? You know, you're trying to treat kidney, blood. I mean, I respect them. I respect them highly because what they're trying to do is not easy. But when you have, and it's probably fine if you have a more common cancer that they're treating more frequently, but you should be seeing a specialist who treats a minimum of 50 cases of myeloma per year. You should probably be seeing somebody who treats 100 or more cases per year. But we've tried to include that in the myeloma specialist directory. I asked the patients, how many patients do you treat on an annual basis that just have myeloma? So that you can find that on the Myeloma Crowd website under the Find tab is our myeloma specialist directory. It's not up to date for all of those answers, like how many patients you treat, but if I have the available number, I put it in there.
That's great. In just the last couple minutes, does anybody have any other questions they want to throw out for Jenny? We'll keep her on, but any questions that are burning that you want to pick her brain on?
I just wanted to ask really quickly, what's been your favorite part of this journey?
Helping everyone. That's by far my favorite part. I love meeting you all. It's true. You meet the nicest people in myeloma. And it brings me, I love talking to patients about their specific cases. It makes me happy that I can share, because I feel like I know a lot about one little thing that most of the world doesn't care about. And so if somebody needs the help, I love talking to them or helping them. And it's so fun to watch these programs grow. I did a lot of this myself for the first 5 or 6 years until I felt like I was going to tip over and couldn't do it anymore. And then we started hiring some people to help. And now we have a really robust team, and they're doing a lot of good in the world, and I'm just thrilled.
Yeah, it's hard to keep up with the events and just listing them. It takes two pages on our slides just to show what we're doing in May and June, and it's amazing that the resources that are out there and the access to experts, whether it be through a one-on-one consultation or just a Saturday morning program that you can listen to and invite the doctor into your house as you sit there and listen and can ask questions. It's truly amazing.
I was listening to Dr. Richardson in your event on Saturday morning, and I know everybody was so excited to hear from him, and he's like, "Oh, I can stay on another half an hour." I'm like, "Are you kidding? This is Dr. Richardson. We have all this bonus time." And I think it was because, like what you just said, so many of these experts are so deeply committed to the patients, and just the authentic relationship that you've built with that community of experts and how you've opened that up to all of us. I just can't thank you enough. And I think I probably speak for everybody on the call for just to express our gratitude for what you do and what HealthTree Foundation does. And I think how we're all trying to work together to support each other as a community. So you're a real blessing. I agree with you. The people that you meet in this journey is probably one of the most extraordinary benefits of the diagnosis. You don't want to be in this club, but it's actually a pretty good club to be in.
We have one last question from Johnny, and then we will move on to our next section. So okay. Johnny, if you want to unmute and ask your question.
Yeah, I guess what you call in smoldering. I think I just went over the border, so I'm in the low, I don't know, the next range low. And I have a doctor at City of Hope. I live here in LA, and I recently decided to see this other specialist, West Hollywood.
Uh-oh.
Oh, we can't hear you.
Yeah. Johnny, we can't hear you anymore. I'm not sure what happened, but if you want
we got to the City of Hope part, and then when you went to see another specialist, and then it all went haywire at that point.
We're talking about West Hollywood. You probably saw Berenson, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Johnny, it looks like your mute function is on.
Sorry about that. So the initial visit was fine. Then the second visit, he had me do a bone scan, a bone density scan, and he decided to put me on a drug called infusion called Zometa.
Yeah.
And I had a real weird reaction to it. It felt like they said you might have a day of flu symptoms, and I had like 3 weeks of flu symptoms. Not necessarily head cold, but my whole body was all aching.
Yeah,
And,
that's normal.
but I heard it was one day normal, not 3 weeks.
Yeah, I haven't heard of that long, but typically your second dose, the first dose is the worst. The second dose is not as bad. And then after a while, like I was on Zometa or the bone strengtheners. I did Iridia instead of Zometa, but I was on that for probably, I don't know, 3 to 5 years or something like that. And after the first few times, it's not as big of a deal.
Did you have any jaw problems or anything like that?
No, I never did. So make sure you have good dental care, everyone, before you start bone strengtheners.
Take Claritin, it does help.
What is that?
Like an allergy medicine.
Yeah, over the counter.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Thanks.
Yeah. Thank you for your question. All right, Todd.
Yep. Again, Jenny, thank you. I'm trying to pull up a slide here real quick.
Sure.
1 second. Should pop up here.
There we
There
go.
we go.
Getting there.
Change that to presentation mode. Takes a little bit, but it's getting there.
Now the internet decides to be slow.
There we go. Yeah, who's slow, me or the internet? Just 1 second. So as a registered participant, you're going to get these slides, and if you want to listen again to the conversation, you'll be able to do that. But also, just as a deeper dive in the 5 steps of the Cure in 5 initiative, there's a slide embedded here that has all the links to the articles. Jenny is very prolific, as well as the HealthTree members, and there are articles that come out every single day on stuff. So we thought it might be easy if you had them in one spot to find, kind of other things to think about when you're thinking about educating and empowering, and some other reasons to join the Cure Hub. And also attach the links to, I think, 2 very compelling articles that newly diagnosed patients should reference around how to make the most out of that initial visit, and questions to ask at the first visit, and also at, especially in the early stages. So that's hopefully a helpful, just a quick reference for you. So in the next couple of minutes, just want to recap on a couple of the things that we discussed in the last couple meetings, again, consistent with those Cure in 5 objectives. Last meeting we had Roz Height. She provided an overview of the Myeloma Coach Program. We really didn't talk about that much in this event, but it really is an extraordinary program. We've got Sally and Tom, Diane and I participate, Jackie and Darlene are all coaches, and feel free to use that if you haven't. And we are looking for a few more coaches in the Southern California area. If you want to learn more, you can chat us or email or go to Myeloma Crowd website. And then here's just a quick reminder on Cure Hub. I said that there's 384 patients, but Jenny already hit on this, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time here, but there really are benefits not only to the research community, but to you as individual patients. I know I personally have found incredible value in joining the Cure Hub. And it's simple too. They have team members that can help you input your information so that you don't have to go through the labor of hours of data entry. And we didn't talk about it as much in this call, but one of the benefits is taking your information and then telling you exactly what clinical trials might be appropriate for you. And Jenny mentioned clinicaltrials.gov is a place where all that stuff is filed, but it's very, very difficult. And a suggestion too is that it's been suggested that the best time to look for your clinical trial options is not necessarily when you desperately need one. So getting your information into Cure Hub and getting a constant feed of these are the trials that are happening in BiTEs, in CAR-T, in antibody drug conjugates, it's not a bad idea to be on top of that early. And like Jenny said, this is a bit of a marathon. You need to have strategy. You need to have that, robust team, including your expert. But Cure Hub really can be a very powerful tool as you put that strategy together. And the other thing we talked about is the importance of getting this entire community connected, especially in Southern California. We're very blessed to have, at least 3 centers of excellence, if not more, experts and clinical trial sites, even beyond just those obvious centers. But even within that, maybe we have 2,000 people that participate. That's even probably a stretch. So anything we can do to bring more people into this community helps those people, and it helps all of us together. We use this resource, and I'm hearing great feedback thus far from City of Hope, and they're passing it out to folks. Has anybody used it? We'll send it out again. But the objective is to try and make sure that people stay connected to at least the top 3 leading organizations. And because there's a goal to not be duplicative, and they each fill specific niches. So probably makes sense to be as connected as possible to all 3. So we'll send this again, but did anybody have any other success using this?
Yeah, we are using it now in the infusion center.
Oh, right.
Awesome.
Because they're allowing paper to be passed out again and whatever. I've made this big blow up of it and had it up on the wall, but we can actually pass out pieces of paper again.
Wonderful.
Very nice.
It's still amazing to me. I think if you ask, especially the myeloma expert, they assume that people know these organizations.
Oh.
And yet it took us months to find these organizations and to fully appreciate the value. If they had told me at the outset, here's what I would highly recommend you do: join these 3 organizations, sign up so you're getting the flow of communication for events and resources and everything else. And that will be a very powerful step to get you educated and empowered as quickly as possible. So hopefully we can continue to grow our community by reaching out in a manner like this.
Todd, just an aside, that handout actually created these little communities in infusion centers, because people started saying, oh, I have multiple myeloma and whatever. And I mean, there's 50 people in there and whatever. So they've created these little support groups in their own right. So it's a great tool.
Oh, that's awesome.
Thanks for doing it.
Yeah, I know Thursday mornings at City of Hope in Newport Beach, it's like breakfast club down there. We have so much fun.
Yeah, I'm sitting in the car waiting for him. It used to be a 15-minute, he's in and he's out. And now it's like an hour. I'm like, come on, TikTok. And he's up there chit-chatting with all his buddies. They have a great time, and it's nice for them to be able to see each other. All right, so the May calendar is packed. It doesn't even fit all on one page for events. And these are just the Myeloma Crowd events. And there's some exciting things here. We have May 14th, we have Dr. Richard, who's from Mount Sinai in New York City. You can see Dr. Nina Shah, and she's from UCSF there on the 18th. There is a different event, pretty much, it covers every possible thing that you may have a question about. What I would recommend is you go on the myelomacrowd.org events, and the chapters that speak to you, join those chapters, and then you automatically get the emails. And I know there's some that I know I can't attend at 10 o'clock on a morning, but I'll join and register for that event, and then I'll get the slides and the video that I can watch later. So even if you're not able to, you're not going to be able to join, but it's of interest to you, register for it, and then you'll get the follow-up slides later. So I highly recommend you look this over. If you're not looking at least a couple times a month, you're probably missing something, because there's some great things. You want to go to the next one, Todd? And so this continues through June, and I couldn't even fit all the ones in June. So I kind of just went until we meet again June 8th for our group. And then, so there's a few that are after you can save on your calendar. And just last weekend, we've mentioned it numerous times, the roundtable one that was with Dana Farber. I know that'll be up on the website, and that was a fabulous, well, it was supposed to be 2.5 hours. I think it went 3. So it was amazing.
I'm going to join this Fitness for Myeloma one, just to find out what Qi Gong is.
Yeah.
However you say it, I don't know.
All right, so move on to the next there. And these are the other groups that we always talk about, the IMF and the MMRF. The IMF has great support groups that are smaller in nature. They're more regional. So I know there's the Orange County one. I know they have in June. Dr. Dory is going to be speaking. They just had a May 1st. The future is looking bright for myeloma patients. If you want some encouraging things to watch, that's a fabulous, you can click on that and see the replay. That was awesome. So some very exciting things in our community in May and June that will keep us all busy. And our next meeting will be June 8th. Again, we'll do that 5-minute pre-meeting mingle there starting at 6:25. So join us then, and then we'll plan on going till 8 o'clock with the post-meeting mingle.
Yeah, and this is a chance too. One of the reasons that it makes sense to have a SoCal myeloma community is because Diane just reviewed a number of the events, but there may be events happening in Los Angeles or in San Diego or other geographies. And what our hope is, by bringing all of these 11 counties together, that if there's something happening in one of these counties, we should all be aware of it as a Southern California myeloma community. So this is a chance, if there's anything else going on that you are aware of that Diane didn't review that you think people might be interested in May or June, let us know. Anything?
I wanted to announce something as people are thinking. We don't have all of the details yet, but there is a Bike the Coast ride in November that we are going to be getting together a team to do that ride and kind of do a little fundraiser. So if you like cycling or if you don't like cycling, join us. Just know that that is coming in more details to come.
The nice thing about that ride is that there's something for everybody. Like there's a 100-miler, there's a 50-miler, but all the way down to an 8-miler. So you can, it's very family friendly and my level friendly too.
Todd and I have our electric bikes. We're hoping that we can go with those. So
Definitely. Definitely.
I'll pass out water bottles.
Perfect.
I like that.
Well, feel free to email us with any other events, because as a follow-up email, there will be, like I said, the slides, the recording, that resource we'll send out, and we can also share any updates you all have as we can communicate with each other, not just once a month, but in an ongoing fashion. Speaking of communicating with each other and getting some feedback, we'll send out a survey, but I am not really good at responding to surveys, and I think that there's others that are probably in that same boat. So we wanted to take just a couple minutes and open up the lines and ask these questions and pull a little feedback directly from you regarding just how you heard about this. You know, are we getting the word out? Is there something you'd like to see discussed at a future meeting? And any feedback that you can share with us, what's working, what you would like to see us focus on differently. So we have thick skin.
Raise
We're
your
myeloma
hand.
patients and caregivers,
Up.
so we take feedback well.
Yeah.
You know.
Speak up or put it in the chat. We would love input. I think the surveys usually come from Audrey with the slides, but we all are busy and we understand that doesn't always people don't take the time to do it then. So share now.
Anyone?
I want to give an award to, I don't know if it's A. Gibbons, who's calling in from South Florida. So she gets the award, or he gets the award for staying up the latest. So that's awesome.
And they were a part of our focus group, which is exciting.
Hi, it's Arnitris. I'm in South Florida.
Hi, Arnitris.
You win the late night award.
It is. I know. I'm trying, but this has been a lot of great information. So thank you guys for letting me listen in.
And if I remember, I think you're newly diagnosed, correct?
Yes.
Yeah. So thank you for being here.
It was between Christmas and New Year's. A few months ago.
Yeah, I'm so glad that you're taking initiative and learning more, because that's the best thing you can be doing.
And I also wanted to tell Ms. Ahlstrom, thank you for the program on Saturday. That was also very informative.
Oh, good. Glad you were able to go and attend.
That was a
There-
great program.
Yeah, they were really great. There are a lot of good specialists in Florida. So if you're in South Florida and you're near Miami, like
Oh my gosh.
Ola Langren just left Memorial Sloan Kettering and is building up a huge center in Miami.
Oh, okay, wonderful. Yeah, I'm in Fort Lauderdale, and I'm still trying to find, doctors and, just get all of this kind of figured out.
Yeah.
I do see a question here. Barbara's saying if we know of any, if the African American multiple myeloma chapter meets in a form similar to this or only online. So as of right now, the African American multiple myeloma chapter does meet online. Sometimes it's in Google Meet like this, and sometimes when we hear from a doctor, it's going to be on a Zoom webinar. That being said, our goal to grow this program is going to start including a lot more geographical chapters that will, especially as COVID restrictions ease up, I don't know if that's the right terminology, will be able to meet in person. So I'd love to, as we grow, talk to those who are interested in their local, in building a local chapter so that we can provide that kind of support and education for you as well.
Mm-hmm.
I see comments from Sally, Liz, and Wayne regarding having Dr. Krishnan, and it is on my list during my visit with her on Thursday to put the pressure on. As you can imagine, she is so busy with 400 new cases of myeloma at City of Hope each year. She is tough to get her time, but thank you, Wayne. You're going to help her too. We'll tag team her.
Tag team. Yeah.
In addition, I know we're
I can
hopeful.
pull her too.
Okay, so everybody
Thanks,
who goes
Sally.
to see her, we have a lot of Dr. Krishnan patients on here. Who's gonna think we're coordinating our efforts to put that pressure on, which is not a bad thing. But maybe we'll get her out to a live Myeloma Crowd roundtable event in the fall as well. If we're able to meet in person, maybe we'll be able to do even something like that. So
Yeah, Sally asked a question about that, and I know
That's
that
Greg's
is
hope, is to do one with City of Hope. So.
And I see that Adolfo asked for the topic of myeloma and secondary cancers. I think that's a great one.
that's a great topic.
yeah, thank you, Adolfo.
And then Sally's asking, will these meetings be both physical and virtual? So I'm going to leave that to the Kennedys to answer.
Well, I think with covering from San Luis Obispo all the way to San Diego, it's probably the monthly meetings will be primarily virtual because it would be hard for us to find a location that would coordinate everyone. But I do know we're hoping to have a roundtable type event. Greg's looking to do something hopefully in the fall, like they were saying.
Yeah.
Well, and I think the other thing too would be, we were also hoping that we would have coaches in each county and in each center. So even though we'll have a monthly virtual meeting, bringing people from, pretty broad geography together virtually, Tom hopefully is connecting with more and more people in the Inland Empire, and we can help maybe bring that closer together. Sally being Santa Barbara and San Luis Obispo County, and we have a new person joining the event from Arroyo Grande today. So hopefully that kind of evolves organically, that there might be an opportunity for some smaller group people that are connected to this organization, but they are in that same county and they feel a bond and there's value in having a conversation. So,
Yeah. And then I could see us annually coming together for a meeting, if the connections arise and it works. And if that's something that you're interested in, so maybe that's something that we should include in the survey, is if you would be interested in meeting together.
yeah.
Jenny, it seems only appropriate that the last roundtable in person was in San Diego, then the first one should be.
I
First
know,
one coming back
right?
should be there, right?
We have to get
I
these
like that.
facilities to open up. That's
Yes.
the problem. Like I'm on board.
Yeah.
I'd come. I love
Awesome.
coming to Southern California. That was my childhood vacations, was all Southern California.
It's ridiculous to think. It just seems crazy that it was over a year ago that was the case, and that we were all sitting there.
We barely eked it in too.
Yeah.
I mean, barely, exactly.
I can't remember who was supposed to be there from MD Anderson that was at the airport that, you know, got the call. Yeah, you can't fly. You go back to the hospital because of COVID restrictions.
Yeah, exactly. I remember Greg making an interesting statement. He said, well, in the COVID world, I guess this group of people would be where I would want to be in a group if I was going to be in a group at this point. It's funny because everyone in tennis has asked me the same thing, and they said, what was the last thing you were at? And I said, a myeloma conference in San Diego. I mean, it was a defining event.
Yeah.
At least the train goes from Santa Barbara.
Norma has a question too. She's wondering if there's going to be a Spanish group. So Norma, we are creating for the first time a Latin America group. And that will be all in Spanish. And we do have some of the articles on the Myeloma Crowd website are also on our Spanish website, which I'll type in the chat.
And we also created a Spanish Facebook page to follow where we're going to be talking about myeloma updates in Espanol. And we're going to be, May 20th is actually the first event with Mexican myeloma specialist, and it's going to be completely in Spanish. So if you go to myelomacrowd.org/events. And
why don't you put the link to it in the chat, Audrey, for that meeting?
I'll do that. Mm-hmm.
That's great. Well, we're winding down here, so I want to just put this slide up because it does have Audrey's, and Diane and I have given our contact information here as well. And don't feel like you need to wait for the monthly meeting to get in touch. If you've got feedback, you can do it in the survey, or you just send us an email. If you've got ideas on speakers or topics, feel free to send us that. Encourage you to continue to tap into all the resources from Myeloma Crowd and the HealthTree Foundation. And in just a minute, Audrey's going to say thanks to our sponsors, and then we're going to do a virtual mingle, and we'll turn the recording off and leave the line on for about 10 minutes if people want to continue the conversation, if there were things that you weren't able to discuss thus far. So Audrey, you want to close us out?
Yeah. So we just want to thank our sponsors one more time: Bristol Myers Squibb, Amgen Oncology, Karyopharm Therapeutics, AbbVie, Adaptive Biotechnologies, Genentech, Oncopeptides, and Takeda Oncology. And again, just thank you to you for helping us build this Myeloma Crowd community.